Today marks exactly 1 year since I did a very crazy thing and started my own YouTube channel. So that's actually me right there, looking quite happy in a time when I had much more time, putting my feet up at night, relaxing on weekends before, well now where I spend most of my own free time filming, editing, scripting, and praying to the YouTube gods above for more subs, more likes and more comments, before lying awake in my bed in the middle of the night thinking of ways to be more creative, to be more unique, to get more of those subs, more of those likes and more of those comments that never seem to happen, and wondering why I spend 10 billion hours a week putting something together that, well, only a few very loyal people watch. That joy of seeing thousands of views on my channels and hundreds of comments will perhaps be something that I'll never experience, but hey ho, c'est la vie. What I've done is I've found myself a fantastic hobby that keeps me busy at nights, keeps me away from spending time in front of Netflix, and actually forces me to talk about something that I actually like to talk about. Now, I'm not a in front of the camera kind of guy, so that picture of me, probably the only time you'll ever see me. In my mind, I lack the conviction to pull off talking into the lens, and besides, nobody wants to look at my ugly mug when I'm talking about something that is much more pleasing to watch for the loyal people who are mad enough to plough through 10 or 30 minutes of my content. All in all though, I must say that it's been a fantastic year, and I've been able to get up close and personal with some fantastic watches, mainly Microbrands as you know, and without a doubt my learning curve has been pretty steep in that time. I look back at my first video and cringe, and I mean really cringe. And to know there are people out there who've also watched it makes me cringe even more. What the hell am I doing wearing those white gloves? It's a $400 Devil Ray, not a Patek Philippe Grandmaster chime. And why am I talking like I'm trying to get my firstborn to sleep at night? I just can't get over how striking that orange is against the contrast of the blue and the black. But without a shadow of a doubt, one of my favourite things about this watch is definitely the bracelet. We can't hear you! Okay, so now I've learnt that you can actually turn up the volume on Premiere Pro. Saying that, those early vids I actually really enjoyed making. Okay, so I'm rambling about something that at the time I didn't really know what I was rambling about. I mean, I love watches, I love horology, I love Microbrands, but really, me talking about them on YouTube to people who have an infinite times more knowledge than me, what the flip? I realised that what I was doing was crazy, but actually nothing will take away the fun I had in the original days when this was all new to me. Well before my channel, I used to collect some seriously bad watches. I joined Watch Gang, and at the time I remember thinking that the RGMT Fieldmaster and the Glavik Con thingamajig was really cool. And then I remember going on YouTube and seeing the Van Banner Parking Master 2.0 for the first time, reviewed by the awesome Watchwit, and thought, ooh, I kinda like that. So I took my fake laptop to the pub with the blurry background and found one on eBay. I loved it the second it arrived and learnt a little bit more about Van Banner, and well, when I realised then what a Microbrand was, it opened up a world I didn't know existed in the watch universe. A world full of variation, full of creativity, and a world full of imagination, and man, I was hooked. After the PM2 came the Le Sabia Sports Classic, then the NTH Devil Ray, followed by the Helm Kuraburi that I managed to snag using a code given to me, then the Helm Vanuatu steel bezel and engineered bracelet, the Gikota Pioneer Red Arctic soon arrived, followed by the OVD Akoria. I culled the shit I collected prior to my Microbrand phase, the Hugo Boss, whatever it was, the Calvin Klein piece of crap, most of my Watch Gang stuff, and the Micros continued to arrive. The Batavi Architect, the Pook Nitrogen, two Deep Blues, dare I say the Foibos, and I somehow completed my helm set with the Komodo, the Miyako, and a couple more Kuraburis in different colorways, all this amongst other Microbrands. But like many, it became too much of an obsession, and all I did was talk about micros, where they're from, movements, design, blah 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 blah, to anyone who was unfortunate to be within 10 feet of my presence. And that semi-suppressed yawn is actually something I'm quite used to now when I'm talking about different grades of loom. Then one day, early March 2022, I decided I could film watches. So in came the camera, the light box, the mechanical slider, a range of gadgets and gizmos, and those fucking white gloves. My office became a mini studio, and exactly 1 year ago in 2022, made and published my first video. Now, regardless of how bad I think that first one was compared to any delusional thinking now that my current vids are much better, I've kept to a formula that I don't think will ever change. All my watch vids contain 4 key parts. They did in the early vids, they do now, and they will continue to do so going forward. So all my lovely loyal viewers can be rest assured that my ugly mug won't ever be filling your screen. And those key parts are as follows. Key part number 1, a small introduction. What the watch is, where it came from, and why it's in front of me. This can only perhaps last up to 30 seconds and is followed by a dramatic, if not slightly annoying intro that takes about 500 hours to compile. But before we do anything else, here's the watch's spec in 90 seconds. Key part number 2, the specification. And I really wanted to somehow showcase this specification of the watch, so its dimensions, movement, crystal, lume if any, that kind of thing, but figured that I'd do that by putting my creative foot forward, far forward, and then so my mind wandered. It started with some quite lengthy specs. The Helm Kuraburi spec, for example, is about 10 million years long and legend says that it's still going, but really I just wanted to get up close and personal with the watch. And that evolved into a 90-second spec that I do try to make as theatrical as humanly possible. And I've been told that it is much like a film trailer, which I take as a massive compliment. Key part number 3. Now this is where I start talking about the watch, and I appreciate that this is where, much like my real life victims, most people turn off. But I really enjoy rambling about watches. In my recent vids I've filled it with as much B-roll as possible, so you don't have to stare at my non-gloved, non-pedicured hands, and instead more macro shots of the watch in question from my light box and odd shots of the watch in random angles draped over neon lights, Coca-Cola memorabilia, and with various Pokemon blurred out in the background. Key part number 4, and this is probably what I'd like to think is my own trademark, and that's my walkabouts. I love days out. I love days out with my family and with my 2 young boys. They are literally my meaning in life, and this is why I'm here on Earth. And this era of my life as a dad to those 2 lads, from when they were born right to this very second, has been, without a doubt, the greatest era of my life. So I wanted to film those days out with my boys, amongst the odd day out when I'm travelling for work, from the perspective of me in the watch I'm wearing. Now my boys only make rare cameo appearances, but for me, when I look back at these compilations one day, I'll know that they were there, around me. So that's why I do these walkabouts. But also to remind myself that this piece of steel that I'm wearing around my wrist, that's part of my own personality, is part of something much greater. This is my world that I live in, and I guess of the watch videos I compile, I wanted to somehow incorporate those memories and those days out into it. The greatest compliment I've ever had about my channel was from the awesome Mark from Mark Time Watches. He sent me a handwritten note simply saying, "Hey Ed, love watching you weave passion with everyday life. Enjoy your time." So that's me, 1 year down and plenty more to come hopefully, and I end this vid today on my channel's 1st year birthday saying thank you. I truly mean that, and I mean that from the very depths of my heart. Thank you to everybody who's watched my content. It's been a journey full of memories, and I hope that this is just the start of more to come.